Welcome to the 10-Minute Facts channel. From national healthcare to the side of the road you drive on, there are some pretty well-known differences between living in the US versus the UK. But what about the things you discover only after moving? If you're an American deciding to move to the UK, here are some lifestyle differences you need to know about before making the leap. 1. Daily drinking is frowned upon in the US, but normal in the UK. In the US, if a coworker stops at the bar every day after work, it would raise eyebrows. Some people might even be concerned enough to talk to them about their drinking problem. In the UK, going to the pub after work is a normal part of people's daily lives. Pubs are social hubs that play an important part in British culture. Having a pint or two with your friends or colleagues before heading home for the evening is as natural as an American getting a coffee on their way to work. It's also fine to get a cheeky pint during your lunch break. A single drink during lunch is absolutely normal in Europe. 2. Weather is far more predictable in the US than in the UK. There's a myth that it's always raining in the UK. It's more accurate to say that there's a chance of rain almost every day, and you can't rely on a forecast more than 6 hours in advance. Being an island nation surrounded by different air streams, British weather is unique and unpredictable. And it's not just the days of alternating blue skies and heavy downpours. There are also random rain clouds that will drench your front garden while the sun shines on the back. 3. Religious activities are common in British public schools, but generally banned in American ones. Despite being home to the world's largest Christian population, the US's public school system is secular. Mandatory religious activities like school-wide prayer or Bible study are not allowed in American public schools, though things like private prayer and after-school religion clubs are permitted. 4. Off-leash dogs and outdoor cats are normal in the UK but not in the US. The treatment of pets is another big cultural difference between Brits and Americans. If you're moving to the UK with pets, you're in for a shock. In the UK, cats are almost always allowed to go outside for part or all of the day. Brits tend to think keeping a cat indoors 100% of the time is cruel and unethical. In contrast, most Americans keep their cats indoors, believing it to be much safer than letting them roam outside. In general, most Brits don't live right next to high traffic or 40 miles per hour roads like you find around American suburbs. Cats getting run over by cars is not nearly as big of a fear in the UK as it is in the US. Off-leash dogs are another common sight in the UK, but not in the US. Even in major cities like London, many dog owners will let their dogs run off the lead while inside parks and commons. While some areas require you to keep your dog on a lead, there aren't that many places with leash laws compared to the US. 5. Driving differences between the US versus the UK go way beyond right versus left. Americans fret over learning to drive on the left side of the road in the UK, but there's way more to adjust to than which side of the road you're on. Motorways aside, British roads are far more narrow than American ones. Two-way streets are often not wide enough for two cars to pass side by side, so one person has to pull onto the shoulder to let the other pass. And if you're on a country road with no shoulder, someone has to reverse back down the road. There's a reason road trips are an iconic part of American culture, but not British culture. You're more likely to find a foreigner doing a London to Scotland road trip than a Brit. The UK's road system relies heavily on roundabouts, which are efficient for keeping traffic moving but very intimidating to unfamiliar Americans. 6. Brits grocery shop more frequently than Americans. This is less a British versus American cultural difference and more like a European versus American one. But Brits generally go grocery shopping multiple times a week versus once a week as Americans do. There are a few reasons for this, with the most obvious one being that American fridges and kitchens are much larger than British ones. You can't fit a month's worth of Costco bulk shopping inside the average British cupboard, and you probably won't have a big double-door fridge in your kitchen for perishables either. Also, animal products like milk and meat don't have as long of a shelf life in the UK versus the US. Preservatives and processing methods are used more heavily and intensely in the US. Finally, it's just a cultural thing. Europeans have been going to the market for centuries and live in walkable towns with greengrocers, butchers, etc., while America evolved into a country where you drive your car to the supermarket. 7. Laundry is a very different experience in the US versus the UK. In the US, we have Laundry Day. It's when you've nearly run out of good stuff to wear and spend all of Sunday moving clothes from washer to dryer to closet. If you tried this same strategy in the UK, You'd run out of places to hang your clothes, and nothing would be dry in time for work. You see, most British homes don't have dryers, partly because there's no room in the old homes here, and partly because energy costs are way higher than in the US. So in the UK, clothes are either dried outside on a line, inside on a clothes dryer, or draped over the radiators. It's all well and good on warm, sunny days, but it's a huge pain once the weather turns cool and damp. 8. Houses are much closer together in the UK versus the US. One of the biggest cons of living in London is how close together the houses are. Even outside of major UK cities, about 80% of British houses are attached to another house on one or both sides. Detached homes are simply not the norm like they are in the US, and buying one is far more expensive compared to a semi-detached or terraced house. There are a fair number of new build suburbs going up around the UK that feature detached houses, but the build quality is rather poor compared to older homes and is likely to get worse due to the labor shortage created by Brexit. 9. American customer service is friendlier than it is in the UK. It is jarring to go from the fake happy American customer service to the quiet and occasionally brusque British style. Of course, this varies quite a bit between regions, just like the southern US versus the East Coast. But overall, you shouldn't expect to get anything more friendly than to have a good day at the very end of your transaction. 10. Work-life balance is far better in the UK versus the US. With 28 mandated paid holidays per year and a generally non-competitive work culture, I'd say the UK has a good work-life balance compared to the US. While it may not be as good as France or Sweden with a whopping 41 days off, it's far better than the 0 days Americans are entitled to get. People don't feel guilty about using their holidays, and it's normal for offices to empty in August. And when post-work drinks at the pub are an integral part of the culture, late nights in the office aren't too common. 11. Brits travel abroad way more than Americans. In 2007, only 27% of Americans had a passport, though it has since increased to around 42%. Depending on the state you lived in, your family might have gone to Mexico or Canada now and then, but few Americans were jetting off overseas regularly. Brits, on the other hand, pretty much invented the package holiday. Even average income families could afford a trip to Spain or France every few years, and today's budget airlines can get you from London to Rome for £40 round trip. There are cultural reasons why Americans don't travel far from home. But when you have a diverse landscape and little PTO, it's no wonder international trips are a rarity. 12. Walking 20+ minutes to your destination is common in the UK, but unusual in America. Much of the US was designed for getting around by car. Everything is spaced far apart, and many people live a 10+ minute drive from the nearest supermarket. Plus, sidewalks and safe street crossings aren't common outside of town and city centers. And even then, they often end abruptly. In the UK, residential areas are more closely packed. Public footpaths are abundant, and right-to-roam laws mean you can walk through fields, farmland, and even golf courses to get to your destination. Additionally, walking is a national pastime in the UK. Going for a ramble through the park or countryside is a wonderful Sunday tradition. Bonus points if you follow it up with a Sunday roast at the pub. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel not to miss the next videos.